Alrighty, this is a good video. I know I've talked about, or I should say I hyped it a little bit in a post earlier in the group. And this is kind of big. Now, I've actually ran across this article before, and I've read it. And I touched on it briefly in another YouTube channel. And so I want to come back to it because this is really important. There's actually a lot of information that these people do, and I want to share with you. So let's first of all talk about this is the National Bureau of Economical Research. So, what do they do? Well, you can see they're a nonprofit, they're a private nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to conducting economical research. So they do a lot of things, and basically they do statistical measurements, estimating quantitative models of economical behavior, and analyzing the effects of public policy. Okay, this is big. You could pause and read that a little bit more. Okay, but who are the people that make up the NBER? This is big. The NBER is the nation's leading nonprofit economical research organization. 32 Nobel Prize winners in economics and 13 past chairs of the Presidential Council on Economic Advisors. In other words, these are the brainiacs of the brainiacs. So these people do researches, all types of economical research, and they evaluate actually countries around the world, and then they advise on policies. But their numbers are shared by a lot of people, including the IMF and World Bank, as well as our Federal Reserve. So these people are some really heavy hitters. I bring them up for a reason, because they do an analysis called the BTI, which is, as you can see, is called the Bartleman Transformation Index. So what this does is it analyzes and assesses whether and how countries are steering social change towards democracy and a market economy. The index aggregates the results into two indices, okay? Instead of indexes, it's indices, okay? The status index evaluates the status of political and economical transformation. The management index assesses the quality of governance. Details countries' reports provide information on the underlying factors of assessment for each country is examined. Okay, so again, these are the big dogs, okay? So they put out this report. It's called the BTI. Okay, and so the report's kind of big, but I'm going to get it. Let's fast forward to the part that matters most to us, and this is it. This is a 2018 report that they put out, but I want to cover something here. It says the governments, and this is on Iraq, by the way. You can see it's Iraq country. This is their report on it. So it says the government's monetary policy since 2003 has focused on maintaining price stability and exchange rate predictability. The inflation has remained in the low since 2010. According to the CBI, which is the Central Bank of Iraq, we know this, the inflation rate is at 1.4. That's 2015 estimates, while the World Bank estimates them at a negative 1.5 or 1.2%. And the country's international reserves volumes has decreased due to the sharp decline of oil prices. Okay, the independence of the CBI suffered a setback in January 2011 when the former Prime Minister Maliki won a court ruling and then placed independent institutions, including the CBI, under the control of the cabinet. Now, we've heard about this. In January 2012, the CBI raised the exchange rate up to $1.19. It caused a huge crisis that led to the Supreme Judicial Council to issue an arrest warrant for the CBI governance. I'm not going to try to Shabibi. That's what it is. In October 2012, on charges of corruption. So Shabibi received a 7-year prison sentence in absentia exchange. 2014, shortly before he was acquitted of charges. The difference between the official and parallel exchange increased from 3% in 2015 to 9% in 2016. So here you go. The CBI introduced a number of policies that kept inflation low. The dinar remained widely stable and was worth $1.71 in early 2017. Okay, it was $1.71. Now, this is what the BTI analysis came up with, okay? And they list, and you could go to this website and they have all the different reasons why they come up with this, but here's some of them. So let's continue to talk about them because it's kind of a big deal. The reduction of Iraq's debt. Now, what I want you to do as we read these, I want you to think about where they were at the time this report was being put together versus where we are now, okay? So the reduction of Iraq's debt is to sustain, along with the debt relief negotiations, has been a CBI priority since 2003. This led to an 80% reduction of the Paris Club debt, approximately $800 million annually, while negotiations with non-Paris Club creditors are still ongoing. In the attempt to ease the financial burden of Iraq, members of the Paris Club agreed to postpone debt for Iraq until the end of 2019. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this has already been handled, and I believe like they forgave 85% of the debt. I might be wrong, but it seems to me like we've talked about this before. So Iraq's external debt was reduced by $58.13 billion at the end of 2014. Meanwhile, the Iraqi public debt continues to increase, reaching 61.4% of their overall GDP in 2015, and leaving total revenues of, that's a lot of money, in the World Bank. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at where they came up with these rates compared to where they are now. The approximate cause of the Iraqi economy problems are a rise in the military expense in order to fight off the ISIS and recapture territories under their control. So $13.1 billion in 2015 total governance expenditure, reaching 22.4% of their overall GDP in that same year. A sharp decline in the world oil price, however, its roots lie in the long-term financial mismanagement. So on December 7, 2016, Iraq Parliament approved the 2017 budget, which predicts deficits of $19 billion after revision of its expected oil prices from $56 a barrel down to $42. Now, this is what the revision of the oil price prediction was for 2017. So they were predicting somewhere around the average of $42 a barrel. That's kind of big compared to where we are now. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Or I should say there's a huge difference. With expenditures of $100.7 trillion, about 6% lower than the 2016 projected spending. The government intends to finance its budgetary deficits through treasury bills, government bonds, austerity measures, loans, and local banks, and the IMF. Okay, so let's take a look at something. So let's break this down just a little bit, okay? So let's start with Iraqi's inflation. This is the forecast for Iraqi's inflation. As you can see, it's consistently low. Okay, it's always low. This is big. This helps with the value of their currency, okay? Now, I want to talk about oil, but you know, on other shows, we're told to pay attention to the Brent crude oil value. That's wrong. That's not Iraq's oil. As you can see, the Brent crude oil is nowhere near Iraq. So it's not the Brent crude oil that you're looking for. Okay, what we want to look at, the Iraq oil to monitor is called the Basra oil. That's the one that we want to keep an eye on. So if you go to where we are currently right now, you can see on the OPEC members, here it is right here. This is Iraq's oil. There's a huge difference between looking at the Brent crude oil price of $60 versus Iraq's real value, which is the Basra Light right here, 68.47. You can see it right here. All right, so it's not the Brent crude like we're told. It's actually the Basra right here. And I think I looked up their average. Their average for the year so far is $67. $67 on average so far for 2016. That's pretty big. I know you're saying, so what does this mean? So, if you remember in 2017, ISIS still had a strong presence in Iraq. It wasn't until March of 2019 that Trump ended the ISIS caliphate in Iraq, all right? So, since the early 2017, when the rate was estimated to be worth $1.74, and I'm talking about the Iraqi dinar, the rate was estimated to be worth $1.74 by the National Bureau of Economics. ISIS was still is is all but gone by now, is what I want to say. So ISIS is all but gone in Iraq right now. Oil production value per barrel has increased from $45 per barrel in 2017 and is somewhere about $67 per barrel in 2019. So you're looking at about a 48% increase. So that's a huge jump in oil value. That's a lot of money coming into Iraq, okay? Inflation is still low, as well as the Iraq GDP is estimated in 2020 to be between 11 and 16%. That's huge. We know in the United States, we're fussing just to get 3% GDP, all right? So if they're looking at between 11 and 16%, you know, so what this mean? What does this mean? Well, what this means is that the current rate is, at the very least, we know, according to them, is going to be $1.74. So in the worst case scenario, if we stick by what they said, the rate was $1.74, then we're not doing too shabby. But let's be realistic. With the increase about 48%, inflation still low, a huge jump in GDP from 6 or 7%, predicted between 11 and 16% by 2020. Yeah, you know, do the math. We're looking at a much higher rate than at least $1.74 based on the models used by MBER. Okay? But wait, there's more. Let's take a look at something. So there's this website I used to go to. I used to read it a lot. It starts off kind of negative about the Iraqi dinar. All right, so it talks about if you feel like you're being robbed, contact these people here. And then it goes on to kind of bash a little bit. It tells a story about the men who were busted in Toledo. And they ran a scam. So I want to make something perfectly straight here. Let's get something straight. It's not that the Iraqi dinar is a scam. The currency is a real currency. You can buy and sell the currency. So it can't be a fraudulent currency, okay? So what these people were doing were selling the currency with a promised rate, and that they claimed that they had insider information and told them what the rate was going to be. So they misled people. And it cost people millions of dollars, and they bought into the Iraqi dinar. So that wasn't very good. So it's the part that was illegal was them promising the guaranteed rate and, promising them a date when the rate would change. Okay, so this is why you hear us often say we don't do dates or rates. This is why. Okay, so it goes on to explain what Executive Order 13303 is. But I wanted to bring you here because there's a few other things that I think you guys might be interested in knowing. It talks about the CPA 39, the foreign investment, also known as the Bremer Order. Okay, so you could get into that. Feel free to pause this and just read it a little bit. But I wanted to come down here a little bit and show you something, because often we talk about this. People always trying to guess what is going on. How much does U.S. have? The U.S. Treasury does not officially list the Iraqi dinar as part of its country's forex reserves. Exactly how many dinars were traded is not mentioned, but it does make a reference to billions of U.S. dollars traded to Iraq. Experts speculate that the U.S. government received nearly 4 trillion Iraqi dinars at the locked-in exchange rate of $4 per dinar. So that's crazy. It actually says 4,000 dinar to $1 US. Okay, my bad. I read that wrong. Okay. So 4,000 to $1 US. So in other words, they gave them very little money and got a lot of dinar back in exchange for that. So for every $1 that the US gave them, they got 4,000 dinars back. Okay, so that's the people go, I wonder how much dinar the United States government is holding. Well, that's a lot right there. So if we got 4,000 dinars for every dollar, and we're saying that we spend billions, we're holding a lot of Iraqi dinar, okay? So the U.S. government would stand to profit in the trillions. It makes sense. As would anyone else who speculated on the dinar over the years. Okay, so it goes on to talk about the Iraq pumping oil and its wealth. Okay, so, but here's the thing. I don't know if you guys remember this. The Bush administration, remember when we went to war with Iraq and people were saying, hey, we can't afford a war, there was a statement, okay? And Paul Wolfowitz said this, and is the war would pay for itself. There is a lot of money to pay for this that does not have to be the U.S. dollars taxpayer. Let's read this again. There is a lot of money to pay for this that doesn't have to be the U.S. taxpayers' dollars, and it starts with the assets of the Iraqi people. So you see, they already knew in advance when they went in there that we would more than get our money back. So what's this mean to us? If we're sitting on that much dinar, okay, and think about this. If we're sitting on this much dinar, Bush's people are telling us, don't worry about how much the Iraq war costs because it's going to pay for itself. We know we've spent trillions of dollars on this war. So this must mean they're expecting trillions of dollars back so that the war could pay for itself. Our national deficit right now is at 22 trillion. All right. I think we spend somewhere, I think it's between 11 and 17 trillion dollars on the war. I don't know the right figure, but you guys can look it up. So if it's going to pay for itself, that's a huge portion of our national deficit paid off. So yeah, I mean, if Trump really wants to win the re-election, all he has to do is push in 2020, or hell, even at the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020, push that rate change. And guess what? He could pay off the national deficit almost all the way down. Who the heck wouldn't re-elect him then? Okay, but let's get past that because they do talk about the Iraqi dinar rate. And I know that's what you guys want to talk about. So Iraq announced that they removed 70% of its money supply. Okay, during the 2008 windfall of Iraq, the central bank's aggressive policy spent $1 billion to $1.5 billion every year in oil reserves to buy physical Iraqi dinar supply on the open market. Okay, so you're probably saying, well, why are they buying it back? Because a lot of their currency had been sold by speculators, all right? A lot of speculators bought into this. A lot of people, there's a lot of the Iraqi dinars out there, so they used the money to buy a lot of it back. I know that people are always going, well, how much money is out there, Lee? How much dinar is out there? Are they going to be able to pay this back? Well, right here, they're telling you that 70% of the supply that was out in the world had been bought back. And this was in 2008. Okay? So remember, though, the physical supply has been reduced. Derivative circulation has been increased by fractional banking, aka derivatives, which increased M2. M2 is not a total supply physical IQD. Let's get to the good part. I want to let you guys hear this super quick here because this is interesting. This is from Jim Cramer's perspective on Iraqi Dinar 2019. Just hear him out.
All right, as we get ready for Jim Cramer, we did just want to go through the answer to a question a lot of our viewers have had. Some of you talking about Iraq, maybe a company or a private equity investor looking to invest. Others of you actually looking to invest in stocks. There are a few ways to do that. All of them are still small. These are not recommendations, but Babylon is one potential fund. We'll put these up. Northern Gulf Partners also will be launching a mutual fund type security over the next 3 weeks. And there are other ways to trade, for example, through Auerbach Grayson, which we mentioned yesterday. So you can see those right there. So there's a broker, a fund coming there, and then also a fund in Babylon fund. Again, to emphasize, they are small, but they are starting. Now let's bring in Jim Cramer. Jim, I know obviously you're not recommending any of those, but you had a different take on Iraq today and how you might play it.
Well, one of the things that one of our viewers, I mean, we've usually got great viewers on Mad Money, is saying to buy the dinar. Now, I am not sure exactly how you can buy the dinar in bulk in this country. But I got to tell you, Aaron, I have requests every day from people who want to own the currency of the country. And you know what? I'm always in favor of owning the currency as a play.
Jim, I'm looking for my dinars. I have some. That's why I'm making all kinds of scurrying noise. Here's my dinars. I got them.
Well, you know, look,
I'm from the Trade Bank of Iraq, the only ATM in the country.
Look, this is a country that's resource-based, which is a little bit like Australia, frankly, that obviously has tremendous aid by the U.S., but could be very self-sufficient with all these oil companies that we've been talking about that are exploring, they're about to explore there. And so I told my viewer, look, I can't fight it. I would like to know how best to get it, and it would really be great if, you know, these guys set up these ETFs all the time. How about an ETF to play the dinar? That would really be the best way to go.
You know, it's amazing, Jim, because I have to say the mood here is incredibly enthusiastic, and there are more than 1,000 people here. It's literally jam-packed. You have to kind of slither your way through. That's how many people are here. Hundreds of people were turned away, and everybody...
Okay, she goes on to talk about where they're at after that, and has nothing to do with the Iraqi dinar. I just wanted you to hear that. So even back in 2009, there were, people were interested in investing into the Iraqi dinar. Okay, you don't want to listen to Hillary Clinton because all she does is she goes on in this video to talk about the growth potential that they see in Iraq. Though I will bring up one thing of note of interest. Now, you hear all these things about the investigation into Joe Biden and Joe Biden's son in Burisma Oil. We know that the son was on the board of Burisma and he got millions of dollars. The whole deal was worth billions. We also know that Joe Biden's son got $1.5 billion from China. But here's something you might not know. Joe Biden's brother got a $1.5 billion housing contract in Iraq while his brother Joe was the vice president. So that's just another thing added on top of the criminality of the Bidens. Okay, so let's get past this. Okay, so this is a good article. It goes on to talk. They're a little bit more advanced from 2009. What's going on? Feel free to pause this if you want and just read it. I'll pause a little there. But I want to get you to where a lot of people ask these same questions and it's being answered in here. Okay, so give me just a second. Okay, so yesterday the United Nations Council made this very important statement. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this because this is big. So every time somebody feels negative and you have them naysayers out there, pay attention to what we're about to go over. The United Nations Council would welcome in the draft resolutions, preamble, part AKA, oh my God, preparatory statement, both Iraq and Kuwait efforts to advance regional stability and all the positive steps that they have been taken by the government of the Iraq to fulfill Resolution 833 from 1903, okay, or 1833 of 1993, related to the border between the two neighborhoods, okay, so neighboring countries. But look at this. Sorry, I get ahead of myself. Okay, so here we go. This is kind of big. So here they goes on to, when we hear negative stuff, this person's actually addressing it. So the most written, tangible statement that the importance of the IQD to be restored to the pre-1990s international standing to date has been made by the United Nations Security Council on June 26, 2013. You ready? Here we go. The United Nations Security Council would recognize that the situation existing now in Iraq is significantly different from when Saddam's regime invaded Kuwait in August 1990, and the importance of the Iraq achieving international standing equal to that which is held prior to that date. Then the IQD was 322 for every $1 US. Okay, so this is them talking about it needs to be reinstated at the 322. So they come down here, and I've heard these questions so many times, so I'm so glad I was able to find that they answered them. Okay, so here we go. And their attempt to, and this person makes a good point, and as we hear this a lot, people do a lot to discredit and discourage people from buying the Iraqi dinar, okay? So in their attempt to discredit the dinar, they state, these are the negative people, they state that the IQDs are sold on misleading hype. They state, many dinar dealers refer to the value of the Iraqi dinar prior to the 1990 Kuwait invasion, which the dinar is over $3, as evidence that the potential for the dinar is theoretically unlimited. The United National Security Council just said the exact same thing, that when it gets reinstated, it's going to be above $3. Okay? They state They don't mention the pre-1990 dinar has been demonetized, worthless, and that its value was arbitrarily set by an autocrat regime led by Saddam Hussein. So I've heard this before. People go, oh, that 322 rate was a fake rate because it was set by Saddam Hussein. Therefore, it's not real. That's not the case. Look at this. This is an incoherent and hack statement towards pre-1990 international standings. The dinar became worthless due to war. Due to being attacked by the U.S., nothing else in the financial world can change the fact that the pre-1990 IQD was 322, period. Okay? We'll keep going on. They state, following the embargo, the ability of the Iraqi government to manage its currency value collapsed, and it spent the next 10 years at 2,000 to 3,500 dinars for every US dollar. Okay? So, here's the response. Again, another unlinkable, incoherent, ad hoc statement towards the pre-1990 international standing. The dinar became worthless due to war, due to being attacked by the U.S. Nothing else in the financial world can change the fact that the pre-1990 IQD was at 322 per US dollar. Okay, so what they're talking about is they're saying based from what the United Nations are saying. Okay, so it goes on to say these dumb sites, these hacks. So whoever is writing this is complaining that these people who are making these false statements about the Iraqi dinar are really doing it to discourage people from investing in it. And it's not right. They shouldn't be doing that. This is legitimate. And again, it goes on to say that it was the United Nations Security Council is saying that the IQD was at 322. That was a rate. It was not set up by Saddam's regime. It was the pre-war rate. 322 was the rate. And when it gets reinstated, according to these people, and I'm talking about the United Security Council, it's going to be reinstated at 322. Now, I know we just went over the National Economic Research paper, the National Bureau of Economics. They are estimating what the current value is, and it's at $1.74. That was in the early 2017. I think by now we're going to be above $3. I don't believe there's any reason for it not to happen. I've spent so much time reading negative articles about the Iraqi dinar, and they all make good points, but what they don't do is tell you anything that has to do with the economy, nothing that has to do with oil. Everything that they're negative about and why they say the dinar is a scam and how it'll never increase has to do with the government that's unstable and the government that's corrupt. That is it. Nothing else. Nothing else on all the negative articles. It's all the same thing. But what they don't tell you is, what if the government becomes stable? What if the corruption's being dealt with? And that's what we're seeing right now. Anyways, I just wanted to share this with you to say, look, in my opinion, if we're going on the worst case scenario based on the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they are big dogs and they are the big wigs when it comes to the economy, at pre-2017 or early 2017, they were saying that the rate was $1.74, I believe it was, at that time. But since then, we know we've come a long way. There's no more ISIS. The oil price per barrel is up 48% over the price in 2017. The GDP is going to double. And we see that these corrupt people are being taken out of office, all right? So do me a favor. If you like the video, go ahead and smash the like button. Don't be afraid to share it. Please subscribe and leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me what you think of the National Bureau of Economics. What do you think of their idea of $1.74 back in early 2017 versus what this article goes on to talk about the National Security Council is saying that they recognize the rate of 322. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good evening.